right. Well, hello. Thank you both for joining us so much. And for those of you on the laptop, we have President Darin Van Tassell and Head Coach Ian Cameron here to address us today. So I'll let Darin go ahead and kick things off.
Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. It's been a busy week in the Tormenta FC organization. Several announcements to make today. One is let's spend some time on Nick Akoto's transfer. I think it was a week ago today that we began those negotiations with Burton Albion. They moved quickly. They moved fairly swiftly. Nick was someone on their radar for a bit. He's got some ties with the current coaching staff, where Nick also played with when he was in the academy level. And they've been following him. And listen, it's a wonderful story for Tormenta. I think when we started our club, when Nisha and I did almost 10 years ago now, we wanted this to be a place where people could win championships and players could also find a place and elevate themselves and to move forward. And Nick's just the latest example. He's not the first person we ever transferred, of course. Connor Antley was our first, and while I may be out of order, and Marco Micheletto and Stefan Mueller and even getting Josh Phelps moved on. Nick was certainly an important one for us because this is the first time we've moved anybody into England and to League One. Thanks to Ryan Reynolds and crew, League One is getting a lot more attention. It'll be great fun to watch Nick perform at those levels. What does that mean for us at this system? Well, at this point in the season, I should say, listen, we're going to celebrate where Nick is, but we've got a championship to win here ourselves. We've got hardware and trophies to be played for. So that comes with what's next here in this current squad. Today we're going to announce at least one of those new members who will be joining the squad. I'll let Ian speak to that. I'll be very open at this stage. We may not be done. We shall see. I think where we are in our club, and I think any club at this point of the year, has to make all those assessments about what gets us best. I'll be very open. I like the squad that we have. I think this is a squad that we can win with. I think, collectively as a staff and organization, our decisions are often about, with our what's next mentality, where do we go this week and where do we take us for all that. But it's been an exciting week for Tormenta. There's going to be lots of questions about what the process was like, how we got there, who are the new folks joining in. And with that, I'll let Ian sort of start, give ourselves some opening statement before we get some questions about at least our current member who's joining us today.
Yep, certainly from my side, I'd like to dovetail off that. I think staff and I are charged by the ownership with two challenges: to win championships, which clearly we endeavour to do. I think our fan base will know that from our endeavours in the past couple of years, and to try to find what we'd call undervalued assets out there in the soccer world, and trust that our environment can take those undervalued assets and then let them fulfil their potential. And Nick falls firmly in that bracket. Somebody that, through our identification process, which is multi-tiered, everybody in the club has a role in that, and we have a nice platform for doing these things. And we were able to bring them into the USL 2 structure, which the club gave us an umbrella to do, and that's the full arsenal of this club. Both on the men's and the women's side, we have these tiers to identify young talent, cultivate it, allow it to prosper, give it an opportunity to fight for championships, and then hopefully fulfill the potential and move for a bigger payday or a bigger league or something up the pyramid from here. So that's our model, and it's one that we're quite proud of. We try to do both. We're always aspiring to do both, and this very current season, that stays firmly in their mindset. Can we help these boys, and can we win a championship? And we still feel like we're on course to do that with a little bit more work from this group. On the other news, to kind of bring somebody new into the fold, we've just made a move to acquire a player. This, to be honest, is not on the back of Nick Akoto leaving. It's a whole separate process. This is a player that the ownership and the staff have identified as a free agent for multiple weeks. Quite to our shock that he was a free agent. We were thinking about making a move at the start of the year. It just didn't quite transpire. But the ownership and I both looked at the fact that Aaron Walker, somebody that has championship caliber, championship mindset running through his veins, that's somebody that we looked at and said, okay, for this second half of the season, the squad could always benefit from a character like Aaron Walker and what he brings to the table, joining the group, reinforcing us in midfield, his leadership, his habits, his ability to mentor the multiple young professionals we have in our squad. That was a chance that we couldn't give up. That's been working in a few weeks, and I think those speak volumes of we're actively trying to find good solutions for the players we have. We're actively trying to add to the squad. Sometimes those crisscross at the exact same time. Wasn't necessarily meant. Like Darin said, there might be more additions where we are from now on before the end of the season. But that certainly speaks to the identification process and the ongoing finger on the pulse on how do we get every bit of juice out of this franchise. And that's what that kind of move's trying to do. So today was his first training session. He showed really well, immersed himself with the group with the humility and work rate that we expected of Aaron Walker. And I think he's going to be a big pillar in our endeavours to go and win a championship throughout the rest of the season. So, and on a second note, we wish Nick all the very best. Brilliant young man, great personality, left everything on the field for us, and we can't wait to see the next chapter in his career.
Perfect. I've actually had 4 texts with Nick today, so good stuff awaits for him.
Sure, I'll start. I guess this is probably a question for both of y'all, either you can answer. How do you balance a position where you can, in a position to transfer Nick and reap those rewards while also competing for a championship? What is this balance as far as deciding this is the right time to do that? How is this going to affect our championship chances for this season?
I'll take it first. I don't think that question is a new question for this week. I'm quite certain we ask ourselves that question every week. It doesn't always involve a change in personnel. That question was really asked of us with regarding to Nick. But I just think that's what you do during the season. What's our mix? What's next? Do we have the right folks in mind? Are we doing the right? What are we doing organization-wide to get the squad ready? While Ian's most of his attention will be much more on the tactical game plan. As ownership, Mitra and I are asking ourselves those things constantly. Do we have the right mechanisms in place organization-wise to do so? Do we have the right training atmosphere, the right themes that are being emphasized? So it's not necessarily new, but when we make a move like we're doing now, where we just moved a player on and also brought another one in, I think dynamics are super important. And I think that's where having the culture is critical to everything, so that it goes on fairly seamlessly. I will tell you that when Aaron Walker arrived today, he was met in the parking lot. Players greeted him coming out of his car. We got him moved in last night, incidentally. It really helps when you arrive super fit. Aaron Walker's a great example. Connor Dora was another one. We were tired of playing against them. And to get them here here wearing the magenta and blue really is a lot better than having to play it against him. But he hits the ground running, and when you have a player who's fit enough to do that, it certainly shows, and I think that's one of the more enjoyable parts for me about being around pros.
2 fronts. One, look, the fact that the European market runs almost perpendicular to ours, but they're offset in terms of their timing and their big recruitment period. We know that as an organisation. We have a plan in place that we'd like to sell players to Europe, and vice versa, we'd like to acquire players from Europe. Those are markets that do well. So internally, we have to accept the fact that in these summer months, there's going to be some mobility, both with inflows and outflows. The nice thing from our side is this is not the first offer we received for Nick Akoto. This is, I think, at least the 4th concrete offer that we've received. So these are meetings that we have throughout the year on the right timing. Is it at the end of the season? Is it mid-year? But when this one came in, we had quite high parameters to meet before we'd move with such a thing. And those parameters were met for the most part on this move. And because we have such frequent meetings on these dynamics between Nitra, Darin, myself, and some other folks, then we're always, I can't say we're always one step ahead, but we're trying to be one step ahead. So this came as no surprise. Even though this is a new development from the club that are trying to get him, we've had action plans in place. We've had these situations. We've always been ready to say, okay, we know we have a sellable asset there. We know we have somebody that big teams, big organisations are going to want. So we've always behind the scenes had some plan in place between squad depth behind it. We have 2 players in the squad who are exactly a right back. And then we've got probably another 2 players in the squad that can play that role in some way, shape or form. So in the short term, we've got it covered. We have great faith in those boys to do that. In the long term, we're always looking to say who's the very best we can get in every position. Those guys accept that. This is a high performance environment. This is pro soccer. So those things are always fluid. But we have enough in-house right now to manage this, and by virtue, our first move wasn't to necessarily add there. Our first move was to reinforce in another area of the field, and we're happy to do so.
Sure. All right. Ian, just kind of tell me your thoughts on. I know you've had Nick here for League 2, year and a half for League 1. Just what he meant to this organization and what I guess legacy he left during his time here.
Well, I think one really cool legacy you can say is, I think when Nick departed England, they played in the good academy level football, but came to America, like going to an NAIA organisation, and not one of the kind of blue chip NAIA organisations will have a lot of pros. I think in that juncture in Nick's career, he was looking at himself and saying, okay, I want an experience in America. And I don't know if professional football is in my future. I want it to be, but I don't know if it will be. But he went there, landed, used the USL2 structure, was previously PDL, by joining an organisation that the USL helped facilitate. Used that to get more traction, moved to another NAIA organisation, joined us for the USL2, and really developed along the way. So here you have a guy who's not quite sure, but he's 6'2", 6'3", mobile, gifted athlete, good eye for goal, can defend people 1v1, but then had lost his way a wee bit, and like I said, undervalued assets in the market. Our identification process looked at a player and thought, wow, we could do something with this boy. If he has the right attitude, right application to his development. Our USL2 structure that the ownership have given us in the past has really laid the foundation for that, and he developed himself. He's a really likeable young man, but he's been through quite a few trials and tribulations since he's been with our club. This club has left an indelible mark on him, and he's left an indelible mark on our club. And his personal development all the way through, off the field, who he is as a person, how he deals with adversity, how he manages things in matches, all those things we've all witnessed a seismic change in him for the better. And it's a really cool splice of time that we got a young man like Nick to really watch him develop in his formative years as a professional and develop into the pro that we now think. I think we all sit here and say, when he goes to Burton, we're pretty confident that they'll get a bit more of the finished article than he was when he arrived here. And we see that as our job. We see that as our task, which he shares a responsibility in. And now I think in this juncture, he's ready to take that chance in a very well-known league where you've got some massive organisations in there with great resources and great heritage and history who've been in the Premier League, like Birmingham's, like Portsmouth, who have been in there, and multiple Bolton Wanderers. So now we think we've done everything we can. I think we could have worked with them another year, but I think we've got to a place where we're happy to, empty nest syndrome, go off. We trust them now to go in and represent Tormenta, and I think they've got a good one. So we're excited about it.
I can follow up too. I think when Nick took his official photo Tuesday, which is, it's Thursday now, so it wasn't long ago. Social media has picked it up, moved it on. Nick sent the photo, and I know organizationally we put it on too. He's holding up the Burton scarf, but he's also has his Tormenta warm-up jersey, the commemorative one that we had for Carter Payne. And he turned it around because he wanted to show both. Nick and Carter were probably those two teammates that were closest here. And when we lose Carter, that probably hits no player harder than Nick. His entire training gear this year, he and Nick worked out to where the words Carter Payne were on the back of it. Nick's the only one that would wear those, and he wore those by choice, and he wanted to do that. So I think when he arrives there, one of his first important things was to pay tribute not just to his teammate but to the organization, and that's how you know. That's how you know what a legacy is.
What does an achievement of this magnitude from one of our own players mean to you all as a club and as an ownership and coaching staff?
You can go first on this one.
Oh, I'm a big advocate of USL One Soccer. I think Tormenta's not the only organisation in the league that harbours really good talent that we feel can play at very high levels in world soccer. So we feel like we're trying to play our part in the ecosystem and the strength of the league to prove that we have sellable assets, that we have assets that are deserving of good fees, to run strong organisations, to be platforms, and to hold out and show the strength of character and resolve to make sure that our assets that we've given the chance to are acquired for fair fees and to clubs that see the value that we see in them. And that's not always easy. I sell a lot on the front end to the agents and the players that arrive at our institution, that we're trying to be a platform club, we're trying to transform their careers, we're trying to help them grow on the ladder and be present when they're here. Nick's obviously a great ambassador of that. But by that same token, then we need to show that mobility of the leagues. But we can't just give the players away. We need good trades. We need value met. And it's thankful that Burton came in and showed value in our player. And we hope to see that across the league. I think there's young, talented players in organisations all over USL One. And I think if all the owners and technical staffs have a unity about our product and a sense of pride about our product, I think this can be one of many big transfers. I hope the transfer record is broken again next week, and then again by our club. I hope it gets broken multiple times over, because that's, I think, what the owners deserve and the organisations deserve. And I think we've got enough talent in our league for that to happen.
I think, to pick you back, Ian, listen, we're going to, as a club, it's a fun day for Nick. It's a fun day for the club. I don't think we should understate how important it is to the league. And I don't just mean League One, but all of the USL. Having clubs in England paying transfer fees for players in our league is new. We should just state that. And anything new comes with, something has to happen first. But as soon as it happens once, let me put it this way. The next 10 are going to be way easier than the first one. Will be in this one. Anecdotally, I can tell you I probably heard from 10 different owners in League One, probably heard from 5 or 6 in the USL Championship, and certainly at USL headquarters in Tampa. There were a lot of eyes on this particular trade. There's a lot of folks watching our press conference today. It took a lot of folks to do that. But the quality of the league helped this as much as the quality of an organization and the quality of a player. And we don't want to understate how important having a quality league was to make next steps successful.
And do we have any questions coming from our Google Meets today?
Yes, I have one.
Fire ahead.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, great. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for taking my question. You answered the first part of my question, which was about the impact on the league and how important it is to get a big transfer into English, into the English football pyramid, into Football League One. But closer to home, you mentioned Connor Antley earlier, and he's indicative for me of a lot of what your club has been able to accomplish, right? He's from Atlanta, he went to Mercer, so he's a Georgia boy. And both he and his brother came through Tormenta and developed it. And obviously Connor went on to play for Tampa Bay, Indy Tampa Bay, now in MLS. Unfortunately, has a serious injury this season, but great player. How important is local identification in Georgia, because you're sitting on one of the hotbeds of talent in the United States? How important is that to the club? Because obviously, as you mentioned, you scout all over, but so many of your best players and best stories have come locally.
Was the favorite part of my story. I'm going to let Ian take it, especially since the Antley brothers actually start with him at Mercer as well. And so, listen, we want that to be our story. We want our best players in our area to be able to move on. I love that quote from Ratatouille. He says, "Great chefs can come from anywhere. Great players can come from anywhere. There's no reason they can't come from our part of the state and our region of the United States." And while Connor went first, he doesn't have to be the last. But Connor's a wonderful example of who's come forward, climbed the ladder, and now playing in the highest league, at least in our country.
Yeah, I'd probably double down on those things. Connor and his brother Ian, both exceptional players. Known them since 2014 when I was a rookie coach at Mercer and they were rookie players. We went on a journey together, and obviously the rest is history in terms of what they both achieved in the game. But we want to build really strong relationships with players in the state of Georgia and the surrounding states. South Carolina has a big footprint in our academy. We want our academy to have a big footprint in our team with homegrown talent. We also want to build really strong relationships with the colleges in the state of Georgia. You mentioned Mercer. I'm obviously got a very close affiliation with Mercer, being an alum myself. Georgia State, Brett Sorensey runs a terrific program up there. I know Brad obviously runs an incredible program at Mercer. And then Lee and his staff at Georgia Southern are doing really nice things in the development of their organisation in a terrific conference, going through a kind of different methodology now in the recruitment and the players are trying to acquire. And throughout what's happened in the last 6 months is we've had multiple players who either graduated from Georgia Southern or maybe matriculated in or been identified, or currently they are trained with our guys in some way, shape or form within the NCAA rules. And they've come and joined us, so that those partnerships are really important to us. Oglethorpe up in Atlanta has some terrific young players as well and has ran very, very well. And those are just to name a few of the organisations. So players in this state, organisations in this state, feeder clubs, Georgia Revolution are another organisation. Tim up there has brought players down as recently as last week, brought 2 guys to our attention to try to identify, look at, analyse for the future, may go back to college, may matriculate to us. So this is an ongoing process, and I would concur with your feeling, your identification that there's great talent in the state of Georgia, both international and domestic, but it's positioned here, and we should certainly look at our home before we start always just looking the sexy places abroad. There's a lot of good talent in this state, and we hope for it to keep on matriculating through Tormenta, and for us to be the next stop along the way, post-college or pre-college, if that suits our individuals.
And I'll even be more specific. There are 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds in our academy, both boys and girls, who are going to grow up into men and women who we want to matriculate right through our first teams and have them move on to whatever comes after the first teams here. So it's a big honor for us. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Sure. Just if you wouldn't mind just expanding a little bit on how this transfer for Nick creates, or what does it mean for recruiting new players to come here? Does this make players more, or agents more interested in Tormenta, seeing what you can do for their clients?
Well, we don't have to have folks wonder anymore about where transfers can happen. Clearly, we've been successful internally inside the domestic transfers in the United States. We actually had the first transfer in League One history with Connor Antley. Now that we were a brand new league, he just happened to be the first one when we went to Indy 11. But I think when we start moving into Europe specifically, it puts a different set of eyes on it. I think just the number of folks in the press conference and watching us in all the various platforms that we have, it changed in the last 48 hours. And so with that comes all the opportunities that come with people watching us for the first time. And it allows us to have a conversation that's clearly differently, both as a club and as a league.
Yeah, I think we want credibility. We certainly market ourselves as an organisation that wants to win championships, but wants to be a platform club for young professionals to develop. That's in the front office, where we have quite remarkable statistics, proof of concept on the mobility and the transformative nature that this club can have on individuals' careers. And the same on the coaching staff, where we've got a plethora of coaches now applying their trade in MLS organisations, and likewise with the players. Now, the players is sometimes a little bit tougher because the front office, we've had exceptional talents and they're being plucked up straight away. Players is tougher because the contract terms are different. Their aspiration to go and win a championship and the duration they need to be here is different. But we do have credibility now with multiple agents to say, okay, we are placed that if you have a young emerging talent, to place them with us. What will they get here? They'll get a front office who are going to invest a lot of time in you as a young man, a young woman, to increase your profile. You're going to have a coaching staff that creates what we hope is a high-performance environment for you to improve as a player. You're going to have an organisation that's going to help you try to win a championship in that feeling. And you're going to have owners who are present, who are there helping guide you as a young man or young woman in your life, in your formative years, to prepare you for the next step. We know we have all that. The players who have been through our doors know that from their experience. But for the agencies on the outside, I think it helps for them to see a little bit of the sugar on the back end of the process, to say, okay, do we send them to an MLS organisation who own the rights, or do we send them to our Tormenta where the level is similar, but the mobility for the next stage can be more fluid, potentially. That's certainly there. What's also clear is that we're not just going to say yes to every transfer, right? This is, the fifth iteration of someone trying to acquire Nick. When the economics make sense, we will move. When the economics don't make sense for us, then we'll put our business hats on and run our organisation as we should. So that's always the double-edged sword. And I think a lot of agents are see this as a light and see this as a really good pathway for them to place their young emerging talents. And we trust that we have an environment that's going to look after them and is going to help them keep on progressing and reach the potential that they're looking for.
You're coming off a road win against Charlotte in the Jägermeister Cup and traveling to Fresno to return to regular season battle. How does Nick's departure affect your decisions regarding tactics and personnel?
Thankfully, not too much. Don't get me wrong, Nick has great attributes, but we have, like we said, we have people to plug in place straight away, so we can operate the same way. There's no meetings this week on, okay, this is how we operate now. That's the beauty of soccer. That's the beauty of our sport. That we are wholly dependent on any one individual player. Everybody's replaceable. I'm replaceable. The players are replaceable. The organisation is much stronger than any of that. So, thankfully, no tactics have changed. We have been on a bit of a journey as a team, and where all our rhetoric is on that wave that we hope to be building, but then carrying into the second half of the season. Our challenge is to be the best team, points per game in the second half of the season. That started kind of going into the Lexington game. The last two outings have got us there or thereabouts. We hope that continues against a Fuego team that will be fighting for their lives, with a coaching staff that are proving their way, with a group of young men who are certainly putting in a lot of effort to change their outcomes. So that has to be matched, if not outran, by our boys. And I think the week of training we've had this week, the attention to detail the boys have had this week, the aggression in training and the concentration has been of a place that I'm pretty confident that the Tormenta group will arrive on Saturday night with a very strong performance.
Earlier in the season, you signed Dodge Brooks to his professional contract. Just a couple weeks ago, you signed Isaac Bittner to his contract. And now you have Nick Akoto going to EFL League One. As a founding member of League One, how does it feel to carry that torch to be a shining example for other clubs in the league?
Listen, I get cold chills just thinking about all of those things. I think about the time and energies that Nitra and others we've spent on just putting a structure together so that the more mundane parts of things that happen all the time, like what you just said, get to happen far more routinely here. We have to be good enough for those things to happen. Thankfully, we have an academy that's exceptionally strong. Our origins are right in that academy. I mean, Nitra and I had these wonderful memories when our first team in the academy was 13. Then our first team was age 15. And then our first team was age 16. And then all of a sudden the first team became a League Two team, and now we're pro team, and also with our W League team. Listen, and it can't be lost on the fact that just here in the last few weeks, two of our former, both an academy and former W League players, Sydney and McKenna, have both signed pro contracts in the Super League Division One here in the United States. If fans of our W League team have been following on social media, they've seen even some players from this year have started signing professional contracts, which we will do some more formal releases here soon, and there's going to be more to come. When it's happening in multi-tiers, when it's happening in different age groups, and of course with when you move into the EFL with that sort of legitimizer, I think it's the equivalent of some clubs elsewhere in the world, and they get those first players moving to Major League Baseball. When we think about at least fans in the United States, those are wonderful moments. They're worth celebrating, and there's going to be many more to come. As I said earlier, the first ones are harder than the next 10 to be. And listen, they could come as early as next week. I think as a club and as an organization, we're prepared for those things. But all at the same time, and this should not be lost on us, we're prepared to play Fuego this weekend. We are prepared to put a squad together to deal with what's going to be a very difficult challenge, as Ian mentioned. And what are best ways to do that? Does it involve players that are on pro contracts through our academy and making sure that they're available? Does it involve bringing in a new player like we did with Aaron Walker? That's the fun part of the sport, and it's certainly the fun part of this organization, because we want to win championships and we want to have our best team ready available each week.
And if you don't mind me adding, Richard, I think there's tiers and layers that don't get to sit in front of this press conference necessarily or get mentioned all the time, but that allow all that to happen. Obviously, USL 1's the kind of cherry on the top, and the vision, at least on the boys' side, for guys to come through. But we've got Drew DeJohn on staff, who's done a tremendous job with the USL Academy team all summer. We've got 3 or 4 staff members in the academy who are not necessarily contracted to do USL Academy this summer, and their main duties fall in the spring ball and the fall ball, but have demanded of themselves and want to be part of it, and have driven through to Statesboro from different areas throughout the summer to coach the USL Academy team to help best prepare these academy players for the next step. So then the next stage of that is those guys have all met with myself and my staff in the last couple of weeks, identified here's 5 or 6 boys that we think from USL Academy team are prepared, have qualities that if they're not ready right now will be in a year's time to join USL 1 in the next academy contract. And then I think 6 of those players will train with USL 1 next week in preparation as the next tier, next step. So again, we talk about building credibility with agents and placing players with us. We have stakeholders in terms of the parents in our academy who want proof of concept of what we're doing. We can't promise their boys and girls contracts every week, but there is a process in place, an identification, and a staff around us who are working very, very hard to elevate their game, prepare them for college, but also prepare them for my team. And those are the unsung heroes that really, I get to sit here, but those are the men and women on the staffing side who really give us, the players, and supply us with that service, and we're very grateful for it.
All right, if there aren't any more questions, I would like to thank everyone for attending today. But if you have another question, the floor is yours. All right, thank you all so much for attending today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks everybody, appreciate your time.